there must have been this transition from founder-led sales. I assume Niji or someone else was, doing these, let's call it 100K deals if there's 10 to get to a million. And so what did that look like? How did you sort of transition the business from founder-led sales to, more of a proper sales model? And something I'm dealing with now at Doc. So I'm really curious what you guys are able to do.
Super important question. I mean, sales was Niji's baby. Like he had a personal relationship with every customer. And frankly, like there's fewer things more powerful in the early days than the CEO and founder of the company selling directly to customers. Like there's just a level of like connection and attachment to the problem that customers, want to buy from, I think. And there's a lot of magic in that. So I had to show them I could sell. Like day one, I remember I was on sales calls like in my first couple of weeks and putting points on the board with like another AE who started with me around the same time was like pretty much my singular priority for the first month, I would say. And kind of as soon as that happened, it was like, all right, I earned his trust by showing him I could do what he did, and then showing him I could do it better, not in the sense of like being a better salesperson or something, but instead like doing it in a more systematic and like scalable way. And then it was sort of like, okay, we need to go build a team. And, I think looking back on it, Alex, like there's a lot of stuff I've gotten wrong, here at AgentSync and just throughout the course of my career, a series of lessons and things that you try to just do better the next time on. The one thing we got right here was the first 5 AEs we hired were really, really good. And they're all still here. They're all still here and they're all still top performers on the team. And I think, especially in the space we're in, which is more of like a specific vertical and longer sales cycles and enterprise, like that continuity of that talent, like base has really carried us from a revenue growth perspective over the years. And, those were like a couple of things that come to mind, I guess, early on in terms of that handoff from founder-led sales to being a VP of sales. And Niji's admitted to me more than once that like, it was the hardest thing for him to let go. And so there was a level of like, I really had to bring him along for the journey in a lot of ways and sort of show him like the roadmap of what we were going to be doing to build and scale revenue, and also make sure that like he still had a role in it, that like we still were setting up closing calls where he could come in and just like slam dunk the alley-oop, you know what I mean? Not to say he wasn't participating in a really productive way, but set him up to be, a big contributor still. And I think it was sort of a confluence of all those things, but it was still hard, to make that handoff. I'd be curious what your experience has been like at Doc.
Very similar. I mean, it was like my baby. I have every relationship with the customer and trying to, get the deal done and sell. But I am terrible at the like stuff around the sale, right? Where it's like, aligning to value and the timeline. And I'm terrible at negotiating. I will give like every discount in the world, right? So like all of the stuff that like traditional sales is good at, I am bad at. I think I am really good at like sharing the vision and obviously demoing the product because I'm building the product. And so it's been honestly life changing since Joey has started working here as a head of sales, where he is such a good complement to me in holding kind of the customer and the buyer to task and say, hey, what's your timeline to get something done? Let's align to that. And it's led to so much more predictability in our sales process. And then I can come in, as you said, and do the alley-oop and kind of be the senior relationship person or even be like the product manager, solutions engineer, which is a role that sort of fits my personality and I think what I'm good at.
That's awesome to hear. Yeah, and I think you have to almost in a way like screen for a match in your selling styles. When you think about as a founder hiring your first head of sales, this is somebody who I'm going to be able to sell with, who I can sort of like trust to hand this off to, and then trust them to sort of build a team that represents that motion that they're building. And that's like one of those things you can screen for that's like not necessarily obvious on day one, but if you feel it and you see it and you understand that is like what must be true, I don't know, that can kind of set you apart and help you grow a lot faster.
Totally. And then the thing you said too about sort of being a player coach, right? When you started and actually closing deals yourself. I mean, that's the same thing with Joey, and he's still in that world where it's like, dude, you got to come in and actually close revenue too. You can't just go hire a bunch of people right away. You got to come in and close revenue yourself. And then, we'll get there. You will hire the team, but we got to kind of prove out the model and refine the pitch before we kind of go crazy on hiring and spend too much money.
Yeah. There is a trap of for a VP of sales of doing it for too long. I think it depends on the business. Like if you're always going to be a shop that's, a handful of reps selling higher ticket items, for example, you might want your VP of sales spending 50% of their time like in and running deals. For me, it was like had to aggressively hit that and then continue, but like sort of scale out of it in terms of focusing on recruiting for us to start building the team. So that is one of those things where, it's a bit of an art, I think, to sort of like get in, prove you can do it, and then like just as quickly kind of get out and hire others that can.
I'm curious how like the product and pitch and ICP has sort of evolved, because you've been at AgentSync for a few years now, and I'm sure things have evolved since like the first couple early days. And how have you sort of thought about that puzzle over time? And yeah, can you kind of take us on that journey a little bit?
Totally. It is constantly evolving. And I would say the past 12 months for our business have taught us that like we're going through a huge transformation in terms of like moving up market to like true Fortune 500 like enterprise customers. And those customers look really different than the ones who we were selling the Zenefit story to in the early days. We don't open each call. Like in the beginning, it was, have you heard of Zenefits? And, and then I'd get into it. Right. And let me tell you a story about my experience with compliance in the insurance industry. That's not how you open with Allstate. It's not how you open with State Farm. And so we've gone through a pretty big evolution. And I think the thing that it's really opened my eyes to is it's not just product. It's not just sales. It's an organizational evolution when you're actually going through, whether it's up market or into a new market, or you're just at the evolution of your ICP in terms of who you're recruiting and your alignment with your people team, in terms of your post-sales motion. And do we have the kind of group that can really bring value to this new cohort of customers? For us, one of the huge ones, Alex, that like a muscle we had to build was like a true implementation and services practice to like really help large scale customers implement like fairly complex software into like legacy kind of mainframe technology. And that was something that like in the early days, like that wasn't contemplated in the first year of us being here. Like you had to go get the first one and then kind of learn, okay, like this is what it requires to get that first one. And it's like, it's a series of milestones you're hitting, and you eventually get better at surrounding yourself in the business with people that have been where you're going and can actually forecast and tell you, this is the capability we're going to need as a company to like get to this new ICP. So it's constantly evolving. I kind of look at it as one of these things that's like one of the most fun parts of the job is like working to refine your company around like who is the company with the highest probability to buy from us, and then who's the customer with the highest probability to be successful with us, because those two things aren't always the same. And using that as like a way to align the organization around what we're doing and why we're doing it. And I see that as like a big part of my role as the CRO is like being in the field, taking feedback and bringing that back to the business and sort of articulating a position around like, this is who we think our ICP is, and this is the data to support it. So not perfect at it, not even great at it, but getting better at it, just because it's something we've had to do quite a bit of.
Yeah, I agree. It's the funnest part of company building. I think like product market fit is a little bit of a misnomer, because you can have product market fit in certain segments, but then you're constantly trying to evolve and break into new segments. So you maybe have it in one area, but then you're evolving and pushing in another. And so, yeah, it's a super interesting dynamic, especially in the early days of building these companies.
It's super well said. Like I think product market fit, I think there's a lot of probably clickbaity like types of ways of framing this type of thing, but it's fleeting in the sense that like I think there's a tendency to overestimate the TAM of the initial product market fit that you might have as a company, where that actually might be more narrow than you anticipate. And like you can have an assumption that this broader TAM that we could conceivably serve, like will serve in the same way in terms of our go-to-market motion and sort of on down the line. But you learn actually that, perhaps like there were some unique characteristics of those initial customers that made it a really great fit. And then you have to like make another evolution to take more of that TAM. And so, it's a constant body of work that I don't think ever really stops.